Brass's grasses on the drink codes rot deep where the blood has pooled. Book of Cain, Roman 3:17. Blaviken's market reeks of iron and failure. A witcher's spine curves as the trial's formula falters, paid in its silence, missing verses gnawing at his nerves. Vesemir watches, jaw locked, the ground soaks crimson, a ritual half performed. Kaer Morhen's sacking stole more than stones, it devoured the grass's full truth. A code cannot be unlearned, only buried. The old wolf turned his back not on monsters, but on the code's rot. Its price was paid in silence. Vesemir's exit wasn't an act of defiance. He remained within the code's logic, but its logic was a cage. Neutralitith Witcher's pride was a lie that demanded a price. What if the code's balance required complicity? The old wolf saw the math, every monster slain, a thread in a tapestry of control. His school, his students, were pawns in a game where monsters and men were counted, not chosen. To break rank was to admit the code's neutrality was a mask for cruelty. He didn't flee monsters, he fled the arithmetic of his own hands. The irony burns, a witcher's greatest neutrality was in betraying the code's very name. What does a man sacrifice when his ethics are someone else's weapon? The wolf school did not die with the fire. Vesemir did. They took him as a boy, conjunction blessed, cursed. Kaer Morhen's stones drank the blood of his mentors, left him to rot in the ashes. He learned to kill without remorse, to carve the code into his bones. But memory is a blade that cuts both ways. He carried the school's corpse in his mind, a ghost weight no alchemy could dissolve. When the witchers turned their eyes from monsters to politics, Vesemir saw the rot. The code, once a covenant of balance, had become a mask for power. To walk its path was to drown in the lie that neutrality could ever be clean. He did not abandon the school, abandoned its shadow. The sacking had taught him survival is a kind of betrayal, yet he chose it anyway. He fled not from duty, but from the truth that duty had no truth left to offer. The wolf school's last heir became its first traitor, trading doctrine for discretion. In every contract signed, he heard the screams of Kaer Morhen. In every life taken, the code's hollow chant, "This is necessary." Vesemir's sin was not in breaking the code. It was in knowing it was already broken, and still he wore its mask. The old wolf howled not for the school he lost, but for the man he became. A keeper of memories who let them burn, a witcher who chose compromise over conviction. The code demanded sacrifice. Vesemir gave it a name. Vesemir mastered the trial of the grasses. The ritual bound him to the code's violent logic. It could not be unlearned. At Aretuza, he straightened the spines of initiates. Geralt Eskel Lambertich bore his lessons. The code demanded neutrality. Yet Vesemir's first contract left a childless village. His first sorcery burned an innocent. The contradictions did not gnaw. They calcified. The Witcher school called him Old Wolf a title, not a truth. He did not flee Aretuza. He fled the arithmetic of the code. Every kill justified by the next, every sacrifice measured in survival. The trial's poison was its finality, no unlearning, no absolution. Vesemir's departure was not rebellion, it was arithmetic's end. He stepped away from the equation, let the school balance it without him. The code demanded sacrifice. Vesemir gave it a name, not courage, not conviction, a subtraction. A man who once taught others to straighten their spines, now bent under the weight of his own math. The old wolf did not abandon the Witcher school. He abandoned the lie that violence could be clean, that neutrality was not a hunger. The trial of the grasses cannot be unlearned, but Vesemir unmade himself. Aretuza's walls still echo with his lessons. The code still binds, yet its greatest betrayal lives not in the monsters hunted, but the man who stepped aside. Let the code keep its logic, let the school keep its rituals. Vesemir's compromise was the quietest scream, a master who could not unsee the sum. Vesemir walks, his boots crunch through frost. The school's spires shrink behind him, not as a foe, but as a mirror. He left the code's logic intact. Left its rituals unchallenged, but the trial of the grassicet's poison cannot be unswallowed. A child's scream echoes in his skull, a girl's blood on his hands. The code demands sacrifice, the trial demands acceptance. He walks because he can no longer bear the weight of what he's unlearned. The code's chains are not iron. They are flesh, every contract signed in ink and agony, every monster slain to preserve a village's faith. Vesemir once called this balance. Now he sees the arithmetic. The school's ethics are a ledger of omissions. How many children transformed? how many lives bartered for the illusion of choice. His rage is not at the code's cruelty, but its cunning. It does not force its displicit asterisk shapes asterisk them. The trial cannot be unlearned, its lessons fester. Vesemir's departure is no rebellion, it is a confession. He walks away from the wolf school because he cannot unsee the master behind the mask. The code's architects knew, to break the cycle, a witcher would have to refuse the first contract. Vesemir failed that test decades ago. Now he flees the evidence of his failure. A man who abandons his craft to avoid its consequences is not a hero, he is a coward. The school will call him a traitor, the code will call him a heretic, but Vesemir knows the truth. He betrayed no one but himself. His rage is quiet. His compromise is absolute. The trial's chain remains, the code's rot remains. And Vesemir, the old wolf, walks into the wilderness a ghost, haunted by the howl of every child he never saved. The trial's lost formula hangs like burnt herbs in the ira scent Vesemir carried, a truth he could not swallow. He fled not monsters but the weight of grimoires, the code's hollow promises crumbling in his fist. The sacking of Kaer Morhen stole more than stone. It stole the school's last check on its own cruelty. His shadow lengthens, not with age, but with the howl of every child he let become a monster. The code's rot was never in its letters but in the hands that wrote them. And Vesemir, the old wolf, walks into the wilderness a ghost haunted by the howl of every child he never saved. The trial of the grasses, once a crucible of balance, now lies in fragments. Sacking Kaer Morhen stole its formula, leaving gaps in the code's foundation. Witchers who once mastered monster and man now fumble at half-remembered rituals. The wolf school withers, its halls, once echoing with the howl of discipline, crumble into silence. Monsters fade. Schools die, Vesemir's betrayal carves deeper. He traded the code's rigor for a lie of mercy. What mercy? A world where witchers hunt not balance but coin. Where contracts replace conscience. Friends who followed him were buried in snowdrifts of regret. Those who stayed found the code's chains looser, its lessons lost. The continent reshapes itself around this wound. Neutral ground vanishes. Violence births new kings. And Vesemir, the old wolf, walks unhaunted not by the children he failed, but by the code he let rot. His shadow stretches long. A testament to choices that devour their makers. The cost, a legacy of ghosts and witchers who no longer know what they were made to save. The wolf school's final lesson was etched in Vesemir's bones. He walked its halls as a living codex, each scar a footnote to the code's hollow promises. Neutrality, they called it, a shield against chaos. Yet Vesemir saw the rot beneath, how the code's balance fed on the weak, how its justice was a ledger of omissions. He did not abandon the school, he outlived it. When the younger witchers spoke of contracts, he traced the ink with a finger and saw the blood. When they swore to monsters, he remembered the child who became a monster first. The code demanded sacrifice. Vesemir offered none, a relic then. A ghost in a robe of regrets, the lodge called him unpredictable. The sorceresses named him dangerous. He carried the weight of knowing too much, how the schools were not sanctuaries but engines, how every necessary kill was a stone in a pyramid of complicity. He walked away. Not toward virtue but from the rot's reach. Yet the code's chains do not break, they only transfer. Vesemir's flight left others to bear the yoke. The schools continued. The killings continued. The code's rot seeped deeper. What is neutrality when it becomes the soil for tyranny? Vesemir knew the answer. He let the question fester. In the end, the wolf school's last master became a parable, not of courage but of surrender. He traded his blade for a staff, his purpose for shadow. The witchers who followed would not know the truth of their oaths. They would not know Vesemir's silence was not peace, but the sound of a man who had given up trying to unmake a monster he was made to feed. The code's irony is that it cannot be betrayed, only lived, and Vesemir lived it long enough to see the mirror crack. He walked away, the world did not. The books and games remember Vesemir as a shadow on the wall behind Geralt's blade. He taught 3 boys the signs Quen, Ard, Ignis, but could not teach them how to bear the weight of choice. The wolf school burned. Its code, once carved into bone and blood, now clings to the world like smoke. Geralt carries its fragments, but Vesemir, he is gone. Not in body, his gray hair still braids in Keedwin's wind, but in purpose. Did he flee the monsters? No, he fled the math that adds up to monsters. The code demanded balance, yet balance often meant more children in glass bottles. more villages sacrificed to order. Vesemir saw the equation and erased himself from it. The Witcher 3 ending lets him stay, but the school's ruins whisper, presence is not preservation. He chose silence over screaming into the void. What remains of Vesemir is a name on a tomb, a lesson in a boy's journal. The code he served is a ghost, its ethics as brittle as the treaties of men. His legacy is not in the signs he cast, but the one he broke, the vow to let the world grind its teeth against the wheel. The old wolf howled once, then he let the world howl back. The wheel turned, Geralt walked it, Vesemir shattered it. Neutrality is the Witcher's claim. The saga's irony is how it binds. Geralt let the world grind its teeth. Vesemir let the code grind its own. One hand clung to the wheel, the other let it blade. What does the code demand? To stand, to serve. To let monsters and men burn. Vesemir howled once, then he let the world howl back, but the old wolf's howl was not defiance, it was surrender. He traded the school's walls for a hollow peace, a peace that echoed the code's rot. Geralt's path is a wound that festers. Vesemir's is a scab that hides the rot. The code's contradictions are not its flaw is that it can be left. To walk away is to admit the wheel is not a burden, it is a choice. Geralt chooses to carry, Vesemir chooses to unmake, one becomes legend, one becomes shadow. The shadow whispers you can break the code without breaking your oath. Lies, the code breaks you either way. Vesemir's abandonment was not a rejection, it was a confession. He could not bear the weight, so he became the weight. The school's stones still weep for him, for in walking away he became what the code fears most. A witcher who stopped being a witcher, and in that silence the code's echo grows louder, stronger, more necessary. In that silence the code's echo grows feral. Vesemir's exit was no act of defiance, only a surrender to the trial of Grass's unrelenting truth. What is carved into a witcher's soul cannot be unlearned. The code's chains, once accepted, demand either obedience or self-annihilation. To walk away is to admit the horror, that the code's logic is inescapable. Sapkowski's words hang like a funeral shroud. Asterisk, the code is a chain, and every witcher must decide whether to break it or be broken by it. Asterisk, Vesemir chose neither. He let the chain rust through his hand. His departure was not a rebellion, but a confession, a witcher's admission that the code's cruelty outlived its purpose. The wolf school did not lose its alpha, it gained a ghost. One who proved the code's final, unspoken law, that to abandon the witcher's path is to become its first victim. The trial of Grasses never ends. It only changes its victim's name, and Vesemir, he became the name etched deepest into its blade. What else did Vesemir sacrifice to the trial of Grasses? His name, his purpose, yet the code's rot remained. The lodge of sorceress's political chess, not sanctuary, mirrored his betrayal. You seek truth in Witcher shadows. What other scars will the code demand? Next dossier, the lodge of sorceresses and the Witcher school's